In case you haven't noticed, I really like to talk about excellent quality audio and how you can get it on your interviews. This episode, I'm talking with Josh from Zencastr. This is one of the best ones yet. My name is Kerry Green, and I am the client happiness guy at podcastfasttrack.com, and this is Podcastification. This show is all about podcasting. How to do it, how not to do it, best practices, interesting news items that have to do with the realm of podcasting, and who knows what else. And I'm trying to do it all with a little bit of fun and some information to help you get a show going, keep yours going, or make it better. And if you like what's going on here on the show, I would appreciate it, so appreciate it, if you could leave a rating or review on iTunes. You can find out how to do that at podcastfasttrack.com/review. That's enough of that kind of stuff. Let's get you podcastificated right away. Okay, I am very excited about this episode of the podcast. I'm talking with Josh from Zencastr. It's Zencastr.com. And Zencastr is a way for you to record a conversation with a guest for your podcast, where it records you on your browser, on your side of the conversation, records your guest on their side of the conversation, and then syncs it to the cloud so that you don't get those glitches that Skype and Google Hangouts are prone to. So Josh, I'm so glad you're here. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thanks for inviting me to come be on your podcast.
Yeah, it's great, man. So, Josh, tell me just a little bit about the journey towards Zencastr. I mean, you're a developer, obviously, but how did you get the idea to do an app like this?
Wow. That's a bit of a story because I didn't start out thinking I was going to be making a podcast app. I actually kind of built this on the heels of a previous company that failed, where I was trying to make it was basically an app that would help electronic musicians collaborate and share their audio online. And while kind of pitching that around to people, someone said to me, I don't know about what you're building, but I do know that podcasters have a problem with getting their audio synced together. I don't remember exactly what he said because I didn't really know what he meant because I didn't know anything about that part of the podcasting process. And so I kind of put that in the back of my mind and didn't really think about it much. Later on, when I was looking for something new to work on, it kind of kept nagging at me, maybe there is something there. And so I had a few friends who had noticed were doing podcasts. So I asked them what are your problems? what was this guy talking about? And it turned out that, there were some real issues there with getting high quality recordings and getting the audio, all together in the end from everybody's recordings. And it just seemed like there was a lot of parts of the process of making a podcast that could be made more efficient. And so that's kind of where I got started. And then serendipitously, kind of at the same time, the browsers were coming out with the abilities to access the microphone and route audio around. So it kind of just was a bit lucky and kind of just happened that way.
Well, that's really cool. I'm glad that it did because Zencastr, in my opinion, is one of the best apps for this. That is a browser-based app. Let's talk a little bit about how Zencastr works. I'll tell it from my perspective, and you as the developer and the guy behind the scenes can correct me where I'm wrong and guide me to other features I might not know about. Now, I go to Zencastr.com. It's Zencastr.com. I have to create an account, but I don't have to download anything. I just create an account right there on Zencastr. I'm able to log into a dashboard, and it asks me to create a project. So I do that. And then it takes me into a recording window, so to speak, where I see recording controls. I see the ability to invite someone. I can even set up the microphone I want to use. I can use a VoIP part where I'm assuming I can use Google Hangout or Skype in conjunction with this so that I record the audio here, but I get the video as well. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, that was the original app. It ran alongside Skype or Hangouts and just recorded the audio. Since then, I've added in the ability to just do the call through Zencastr, but you can still do it the old way if you want.
I know some people would want to do that because they want to be able to see the person that they're talking with. But for me, for the average podcaster, it seems just to have it all inclusive like this is just so simple. So simple. Let me go back to the features in the user interface. I click on invite and it gives me a link. So I can send that link to Josh or whoever my guest is via email, via a Skype message, or however I want to, I assume. Is that right, Josh?
Yeah, you can just send it however you want as long as they're able to click on the link and follow it.
Okay. What happens if that lands in an email that's on a smart device? Can they click on that link and use their smart device?
They'll click on the link, and then if their device supports all the stuff Zencastr needs, yes, it will jump them into the room to record. If it doesn't, it will then recommend that they use a desktop browser. Currently, Safari and Apple don't support the ability to access the microphone. So it won't work that if you're on an iOS device. Some people have been using Android devices. Chrome on Android devices supports all the necessary features. I don't officially support mobile devices yet, just because it is still a little bit Wild West there on the features being supported, and then also the devices have much smaller amounts of memory. But it's coming. Eventually that will be something that Apple has announced that they will be adding the functionality that's necessary. So at some point, it will be something that you can do from any mobile device or from your computer.
That's good to know, because I know a lot of people would love being able to do it from their phone in time. My guess is, though, like any recording, your recording is going to be about as good as your microphone or your capture device. Is that correct?
Yeah, if you are using a mobile device, I definitely recommend having a microphone attached and not using the built-in one. And also, if you're recording a podcast while you're walking down the street, then cars are driving by, it might negate some of the advantage of having a high quality recording.
Yeah, I would think so. That would be a unique podcast where that's part of the shtick that they do, and I've actually thought about a podcast like that, but we are diverging into something else. Let's talk a little more about Zencastr. When I get into the interface, I'm in kind of a green room. And when you join the recording, I see your name and your little box pop up underneath mine. And then we're able to communicate right there in a green room. So nothing's being recorded yet. That's just a wonderful feature to me, that you're able to kind of set the stage and get on the same page before you start recording. And then up at the top, there's just 3 simple controls. There's record, stop, and pause. And you can hit record and go. And here we are talking, and you see the waveform bouncing and the timer going. It's just really a really clean, simple interface. Tell me what I need to know about all of that.
Hopefully you don't need to know anything. That's kind of the goal with the interface, is to make it so your guest doesn't need to know anything at all. All they have to do is click on the link. And B, that it's just super simple for the host as well. We recently did a booth at the Podcast Movement conference, and it was kind of eye-opening to see how many people were there. I mean, the tickets weren't cheap; they were $500 or $600, I think, and most of the people there were either brand new or kind of prospective podcasters, and they didn't know a lot about the process already. And so I took that as kind of a goal that I needed to set to make it so that you don't need to be a seasoned podcaster or to be able to understand audio editing software or any of these things that previously you have to know about podcasting. If you've got something to say, you can log into Zencastr and you can record it and say it without having to really learn any tools. That's the goal. At least there's obviously still some work to be done to make it better, but hopefully we're getting close.
Yeah, and that is totally appealing to me. I think one of the things I deal with in dealing with clients all the time is they want their guests, and I totally get this, they want their guests to be able to have a no-brainer experience. So they just are able to click a link and we're recording. And that's what Zencastr does, essentially. Of course, you have to remember to hit the record button, which I didn't do at the beginning of our conversation. But besides that, it's pretty simple. Now, I notice a couple of other features in here. There's a chat window. Tell me something about that.
Yeah, this is a feature that is relatively new. Well, what I was noticing is actually it came from this. I was in a podcast with someone else, had me on their podcast, and we opened up a Google Doc, and he was typing things into the Google Doc while we were having the podcast to kind of help cue people up and say, should we talk about this or that?
Got it.
And crossing out topics. And so it got me thinking, like, we need to find some ways to have better nonverbal communication, especially for people with, some people have podcasts that have 3, 4, sometimes more than that, guests in the show, and trying to keep it to where not everyone's talking around each other or talking over each other is part of the thought behind that, as well as the raise your hand button. I don't know if you've seen this because you're the host, but I have a button where I can raise my hand that says, I've got something to say.
Oh yeah, I see it. I see that. That's great. No, I don't see that anywhere. I guess so. The host doesn't have that functionality.
No, not right now. Although I've gotten some requests for hosts that want it, so it'll probably be the host will have it soon as well.
Yeah, that would just be a way to say to your guest, "Hey, slow down here. Give me some room to speak."
Yeah,
yeah, that's funny. Okay, I could see this also working well with co-hosts, where you're needing to communicate back and forth, like wrap up soon. I've got a comment to say on that subject or something like that. Where that?
Yeah. I've actually considered in the future doing. I don't know if I'll do this or not because there is kind of limited room in the webpage for this, but it might be cool to be able to have like a list of topics that you want to go over and have that shown so that everyone can see it. And then maybe you can like click to mark them, as covered, or maybe like you decide, oh, we're not going to talk about this after all. Let me get rid of that one. And so everyone can kind of see where the conversation's going, but we'll see.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, I notice also up here there is a footnote function. I have not played around with that at all, so tell me about that one.
Yeah, the footnote this is another feature that was requested by the users to, common use cases would be like maybe if you coughed or there was a dog barking and you wanted to edit that out later, you could click the footnote button and you'd leave a little note that says edit this out. Another thing where it would be useful would be, maybe someone talked about a web page or an iOS app that you wanted to leave in your show notes and you didn't want to forget about it. You could click that button, it'll timestamp the note, and you could say, here, we talked about this website. And later when you're putting your show notes together, you can have that as a resource.
Okay, I'm creating one right now, and you click on the footnote thing. It gives you a little window with the timestamp of when you clicked, and you're able to type in what you want, hit the little check mark, and it puts it down below the chat window. My assumption is that that's going to be like a file attached to the media file. Is that right?
Currently, it just is a reference for you in Zencastr. Although I'm looking at in the near future, Zencastr is going to have some publishing capabilities as well. And so at that point, you'll probably be able to have it kind of attached to the MP3 in your like ID3 tags. I'll have to figure out a good way to handle that UI as far as, letting people specify if this is a personal, because you don't want a tag on your MP3 going out that says I coughed here, edit this. But you might want one that says here's this website. So figuring out how to organize that well is part of the reason why it doesn't do that yet. But
yeah, I get that. Okay, so this is just a way for you to keep notes for yourself that you can use when you do your editing or whatever.
I do think it would be. I think there's a way to attach it so that like if you opened the file in Audition, that then it would kind of show up as I forgot what they call them in Audition, but there's ways to like tag the audio. So eventually, that would be really cool to do.
Yeah, well, I know in Audacity as well, there's a label function where you can put labels on certain points of your audio. So maybe it would be compatible with that as well. Ideally. Well, that's just really cool. Now, you mentioned a possible publishing solution in the future. Wow, that sounds pretty interesting to me. So tell me what you've got in mind.
Going back to that podcast movement conference and realizing, how many people wanted to podcast that didn't already know how to do it. One of the goals would be to make it so that you don't have to know how to edit audio or how to do an RSS feed or how to figure out how to publish to iTunes or any of that stuff. In the end, you'd just be able to come in, hit record, hit post produce, and then hit publish. And so I think initially that would probably take the form of, publishing it to some of the popular hosts like Libsyn and Podbean and some of those. And then eventually down the road, maybe I'll have Zencastr host the files as well as an option.
let's start wrapping up here. When I hit the stop button on our recording, what am I going to see?
Essentially, not too much will change. You'll see the timer will stop, but then you'll start to see that the uploads all the tracks will pop in at the bottom for each one of us, and you'll see the uploads start to progress. Our conversation won't stop, but the recording will.
Okay, now when you say the tracks start to pop up and upload, tell me what that means.
For each one of us, there's 2 tracks being recorded right now. There's an MP3 version, and then there's a WAV version. When you hit stop, it's going to finish uploading the MP3 tracks, because every 30 seconds, it uploads a piece of the MP3 to Dropbox. That way, if your computer crashes, you've still got an offline backup of the audio. So what happens when you hit stop, it's already uploaded most of the MP3 right now. So it just has to finish the final little bits, and then it'll show you like, these are 100% done. And then it'll start the WAV uploads as well. And those take a little bit longer, but
yeah, they're uncompressed files. So that makes sense.
Right.
So once, let me ask you this question. While they're uploading, do I or my guest need to keep our browser open?
Yes. And if you try and close your browser, it'll pop up and it'll say, hey, don't do that.
Oh, okay. So you get a warning.
You get a warning. The reason why is, the audio is stored inside your browser. And although there is a backup on Dropbox and there's also a persistent backup in the browser, there's no way for me to facilitate the upload unless the browser tab is open. If you do close it, or you turn off your computer, or you have a crash or whatever, you've got the backup on Dropbox that you can recover from. And then also, as a secondary backup plan, there is a local database where the audio is stored in your browser, but you will have to reopen the browser and then click to retry the upload from the browser.
I see. Okay. So once those are finished uploading, how am I going to know that? What's going to be the difference in the appearance?
Each one of them has while they're uploading, you'll see like an arrow with bouncing up and down to the cloud, and then there's a progress bar. And then when they're done uploading, you'll see that the icon has switched to a down arrow, so you can download the file, and there's no longer a loading progress bar. You'll just see the name of the file and the duration of the recording.
Okay, I see. And so then if I want, say, the WAV file of my side and the WAV file of your side, I just click on each of those icons and it sets up a download window so that I can put it on my computer.
Correct. But if you have your Dropbox app installed on your computer, Dropbox will sync it to your computer as well through your Dropbox folder.
Wow.
So
is it
it's up to
does
you
it do that automatically, or do I have to set up that integration?
No, it should do it on. I mean, if you have the Dropbox sync already set up, the files get saved into an apps folder. It's like apps/Zencastr in your Dropbox folder. And so if you've already got Dropbox syncing on your computer, they'll get synced in there.
Oh, that's super helpful. That is super helpful.
It might not be right away, but within the next hour or so. I don't know how long it takes. Yeah. I don't know if there's an average amount of time it takes, but It's pretty quick, I think.
So that's pretty cool. So when we finish this, my files I'll upload. I can just close the window and go about my business and know that those files are going to be in Dropbox for me.
When they're after they're uploaded, you can close the window.
That is beautiful.
And another thing that might be worth mentioning is after the files have all uploaded, you'll have an option in your toolbar to do what's called an automatic post-production. What that does is it takes the audio files, and then this really is only useful right now for people that aren't going to be heavily editing their audio, but it takes the audio files, it runs them through a dynamic range compression, noise gating, it auto levels the tracks so the volumes are equal between the tracks, and sets them to kind of the recommended volume for podcast, like decibel level. And then it mixes them together, and then it returns to you a final mixed MP3 that you can use to then publish.
Wow. That is a great integration. And I agree. If people are doing a lot of editing, they may not care for that because they like to do their own little bells and whistles, but that is a great feature for people who want the simple approach to this.
An upcoming feature of the Pro account when that gets launched will be to have the post-productions run, but also give you back a separate track that has the audio enhancements run on it. Separate tracks for each person as well as the mixed track. So if you did want to do some editing after the fact, that's still a possibility.
Yeah, that's great. I love it. Josh, tell me a little bit. You're in beta right now, which means you have a functioning product, and I would say a very well functioning product. But you're still making tweaks. What are you thinking on timing on when you're going to move to a pay model and what's that going to look like?
Well, I'm a little bit behind. My goal was the end of February, but life gets in the way. So I suspect by the end of this month we'll be moving to a paid model. If you sign up before that time, you'll be considered as a beta tester, and there'll be some special deals available once it goes into a paid model.
Okay, tell me about the special deals or just about the pricing. You don't have to go into divulging all the secrets of your special deals, but what's the pricing going to look like once you release it from beta?
There'll be a basic account for $10 a month and then a pro account for $20 a month. And then there's also going to be some pricing for networks and podcast producers that have multiple accounts. And then I don't know exactly what the deal will be. I think it'll probably be like half off for the first 3 months and something around that for the beta testers.
Okay. And on the basic and pro accounts, tell me the differences between those.
The basic account will have 4 hours of automatic post-production available a month. And then the difference between that and but it won't have the ability to record in WAV. The pro account will be able to record in WAV as well as MP3, and you'll have 12 hours of post-production a month. That'll be kind of the initial launch, but shortly thereafter, I'm going to do a few things to kind of sweeten up the pro accounts with separate tracks for the post-productions, and then, eventually some more publishing and like social sharing tools, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great idea. Last question on what the future features are going to look like. You mentioned the podcast producers and networks. Tell me what you're thinking that's going to look like.
I've had there's a lot of people that either are podcast producers where they're helping multiple people create their podcasts, or they have a network where they've got several different podcasts kind of underneath them. The idea behind the network accounts would be to make it so that you can have a single parent account that has other accounts kind of nested underneath it, so that you can see, from a dashboard glance, what the status is of each. You'll be able to look, okay, the golf podcast has recorded their episode for this week and they've ran their post-production and it's waiting to be published, or, so you can kind of see the status of each show. And then, probably have something to where you could have, bulk kind of post-production credits that they could source from. I don't know exactly. I'm still that's a feature that won't be available immediately on the next release, but so there's still a little bit of customer development I need to do with the producers and network owners to make sure that it's basically a bulk account for them.
Yeah, it totally makes sense that that's got a lot more little gears in the machinery that you have to figure out in order to make that work well. So I can appreciate having to wait on that. Well, Josh, is there anything I should have asked you that I didn't ask you?
I think you did a pretty good job. I think, it's a little bit hard to explain without trying it, but once you try it, I think it all becomes pretty simple pretty quickly. So
yeah, I have been using it for quite a few recordings I've had to do recently with people, and I'm just in love with it the more I use it, because it's so simple and clean, and it kind of, like I said, for the guest on the other end, it's just a no-brainer kind of process. So I really appreciate that. Well, Josh, thanks so much for your time, and we had some trouble getting this scheduled, but I'm glad that we were able to. How can people get in touch with you and find out more about Zencastr?
At Zencastr on Twitter, Zencastr. And then also you can just email me directly, josh@zencastr.com.
All right. It's perfect. Thanks, Josh. I so appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Kerry.
Hello. So there you have it. Josh, Zencastr, great audio. What's there not to like? And it is free through the rest of March 2016 and possibly even later, just depending on Josh's schedule. But I'm hoping that you can get in on the beta so that you can get that discount before Josh starts it into the paid program. So that is it, Zencastr. I hope that you'll check it out. By the way, this episode with Josh was recorded using Zencastr, so if the audio sounds extra crystal clear, that would be why. Thanks so much for listening to Podcastification. I'm glad you're with me. If you would do me a quick favor and jump on over to iTunes and leave a rating and review for Podcastification, it would be greatly appreciated. You are appreciated, and this podcast is all about you. Thanks so much for listening. This show is brought to you by Podcast Fast Track, where my team provides professional podcasting services without the time suck. Full production, editing, and show notes all in one monthly subscription package. You can find out more at podcastfasttrack.com. Now go out and make it a podcastificating day.